Hey, what's going on, everyone? Greg here, and one thing I was surprised to see at Apple's April event was a brand new 24-inch iMac that still housed the M1 processor. It makes sense given that this is the consumer level iMac and the M1 will be much better than what was inside of those machines before, but I think a lot of people were upset because they were expecting to see pro level devices from Apple, and the last thing they were expecting to see was another M1 Mac. Well, if that sounds like you might be upset with Apple's recent announcements, but you shouldn't be that upset because the next M1X Macs are still coming, and they might be coming sooner than you think. And we actually have a lot of information on not only the new pro-level iMac, but also some unprecedented leaks from stolen Quantra documents that confirm some information we have speculated earlier on with the upcoming 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros. Now, before we dive into the video, I just wanted to tell you all about my weekly podcast, GadgetCast, that we stream every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. It's on a different channel, so make sure you go subscribe to that right now, because this week we are having an amazingly Apple-centric powerhouse stream with Renee Ritchie, Luke Miani, and Gary the Everyday Dad joining us, and we're going to be talking all about the new M1 iMac and probably touching on these future M1X Macs as well. So again, I think you should go over and subscribe to the GadgetCast channel over on YouTube right now so you don't miss that upcoming stream, because it's going to be jam-packed full of information. All right, let's get back into the video and talk about these new M1X Macs. So first things first, M1X, M2, whatever you want to call these more powerful chips, all you have to know is that they are still coming, and they're going to lift a lot of the limitations that we currently have with the M1 chip that we've come accustomed to. Limitations like a limited port selection, the ability to only connect one external display, and memory limitations, with even the latest iMacs only being configurable up to 16 gigabytes of max memory. M1X should solve these issues, so expect these Macs to have a more diverse port selection with increased bandwidth, hook up to more than one external display at a time, and have greater memory configurations that should be at least 32 gigabytes of memory, if not more. We're also expecting a significant bump up in multi-core performance with these M1X chips, which are rumored to be including up to 8 high-performance cores paired together with 4 energy-efficient cores, giving us a total processor count of 12 cores for the CPU. This doubling of the high-performance cores should mean close to double the multi-core performance of the existing M1 chip, which should be enough to outclass every available Intel Mac right now, with the exception of the higher core count Mac Pros. Not only will we be gaining a big boost in multi-threaded CPU workloads, but we will be gaining a much needed boost to the internal graphics card on the M1X chip, because currently the chip is rumored to have as many as 16 GPU cores, which again is double that of the M1 chip's 8-core GPU, and this should give the next generation MacBook Pros and 32-inch iMac much better GPU processing power for more graphic-intensive applications. We've also seen reports from Nikki that the M2 or M1X has reportedly entered mass production stages at TSMC, meaning that these processors should be ready to ship within the next few months. But the M1X chip is just one part of this update, and while it's definitely one of the most interesting things about these next generation of Macs, we are also expecting some pretty big changes to the design and functionality of the next generation MacBook Pro. Right now, we have some pretty concrete leaks out of a hack from stolen Quantra documents that detail schematics of the next generation 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro, and it lines up with earlier rumors from sources like Mark Gurman and Kuo-Ming Shi. First of all, the design of this MacBook Pro does seem to be focusing on the newer design language of the flatter designs based on some of the documents leaked. And we've seen this on the new iPhone 12, new iPad Pro, as well as Apple's recently announced 24-inch iMac, so expect a design language similar to that. We also get a good look at some of the placement of the I/O ports, with the right side of the MacBook now including one USB-C port, an HDMI port, and the SD card slot, while the left-hand side of the MacBook we get a MagSafe connector and two USB-C ports as well as a headphone jack. Again, we pretty much knew most of this information already. We knew we were getting HDMI and SD card slot as well as the MagSafe port back. But the new evidence here is the new port layout, so where the ports will be on each side of the MacBook, and apparently that the next generation of MacBook Pros will have 3 USB-C ports in total rather than 4, but it more than makes up for that missing port by adding back the connections for the HDMI port, MagSafe port, and SD card slot, giving us more ports and more versatility in those ports overall. We can also see that the touch bar will no longer be offered on the next generation of MacBook Pros, and the regular function key row will be making a return. We can also see on this function key row the Touch ID sensor in the top right of the keyboard, meaning in all likelihood, these new MacBooks will still not have a Face ID sensor, and we will still be using Touch ID. And I guess you could get a lot of clues from that anyway with the recent iMac release, because they just released a Magic Keyboard with Touch ID. Of course, there's other changes besides the port layout that we're expecting for the next generation of MacBook Pros, like the 13-inch model getting replaced with a new 14-inch option, while Apple will still be keeping a bigger 16-inch display option. And these Macs should be gaining the new mini LED display technology that were just shown off with the latest 12.9-inch iPad Pro, meaning they will support up to 1600 nits of peak brightness and have a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio. Now, that won't be the only M1X Mac getting a refresh, as we are still expecting a bigger update to the 27-inch iMac, which Apple did not refresh when they released the 24-inch M1 version, and the Intel version of the 27-inch iMac is still readily available on Apple's website. So even though we got a 24-inch refresh, we're still expecting a refresh for the bigger model. For this new iMac, we are expecting the same M1X chip to be inside of it as the next generation of MacBook Pros, creating a clear and distinct line between Apple's consumer M1 products and Apple's Pro products. This iMac is rumored to be getting a redesign with a bigger 32-inch display, but it remains to be seen how much this new iMac looks like the current refresh of the 24-inch model. If I had to guess, I would say that this iMac may actually look a bit different, and I would guess that Apple won't be shipping this iMac in a lot of the same fun colors that the 24-inch iMac ships in, and will instead come in dark space gray and silver options. I also suspect the bigger iMac will be totally rebranded as the iMac Pro, again, to create a distinct line between Apple's consumer and pro level products. I also think it's possible that this iMac could see the removal of the chin in favor of a design that looks closer to the Pro Display XDR, based on an earlier Gurman report saying that the new models will slim down the thick black borders around the screen and do away with the sizable metal chin area of a design that is similar to Apple's Pro Display XDR monitor. That's not what we got with the 24-inch iMac, so this design could very well still be happening. I also think a different design is needed from the 24-inch iMac, one with a thicker design to accommodate a bigger port selection of USB-A ports as well as an SD card slot. One of the reasons why there's no USB-A ports on the back of the 24-inch iMac is because it's too thin to actually use that type of port. But again, I'll just say this is an assumption on my part, and Apple could very well choose a very similar design like what they gave us with the 24-inch iMac, but I'm currently leaning towards a new design. Now, we are expecting a bigger 32-inch display with shrunken bezels, and this iMac is rumored to have the same mini LED display as the MacBook Pros and the iPad Pros. Now, for when we can expect this next generation of M1X Macs, well, all signs are actually pointing to sometime soon. Apple's next event is their Worldwide Developers Conference, which takes place on June 7th, so it's only a little more than a month away at this point, and I would expect to see all of these Macs show up at this Apple event. So if you're waiting for these new M1X Macs, Hopefully Apple has something at this event to show you, and hopefully you're excited for it. But let me know in the comments below, based on everything we talked about in this video, are you excited for these new M1X Macs? Also, if you like this video, be sure to give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, well, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to help the channel out in any way, make sure you check out some of the links in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to GadgetCast. Don't forget, we're having a super Apple stream with Renee Ritchie, Luke Miani, and Gary the Everyday Dad joining us. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I think I said that, but I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.